Look, when your government was
I'm just trying to get a sense from, because you're close to the Iranian regime, I want to get a sense of whether...
What does that mean exactly? I'm close to the Iranian regime. Is that how you introduce academics from your own country?
No, in the way that I...
All right, before we get into this clip is a few months old, but don't let that fool you. The issues being debated here, still alive, still unresolved, still hitting differently every single day. What you're about to watch is Mohammad Marandi, an Iranian academic, going head-to-head with a Western journalist in one of the most uncomfortable interviews you'll see on mainstream television. I'm letting the full thing play before I give you my breakdown, but first, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from.
The latest round of protests, they seem to be pretty intense and pretty persistent, up to and including this latest tweet or post from the US president. What do you say is going on there? What do you say those protests are about?
Well, there are two issues here. One is that because of the US sanctions and European sanctions, basically because of Iran's policy against Israel,
What is Iran's policy against Israel?
Yes, because
what is it?
The whole sanction, Iran's position?
Against Israel, yeah.
Yeah, Iran says that Israel is an apartheid state. It is not morally legitimate, and that Palestinians have the right to return, just like apartheid South Africa.
That it shouldn't exist.
And back then,
that it shouldn't exist. It's not. Is that
no,
what you mean?
as an apartheid entity, no. Apartheid should not exist anyway. When your government was supporting...
I'm just trying to get a sense from, because you're close to the Iranian regime, I want to get a sense of whether...
What does that mean exactly? I'm close to the Iranian regime. Is that how you introduce academics from your own country?
No. In the way that I know that I'm close in terms of having easy access to and contact with and conversations with members of the cabinet. That's all I meant. I didn't mean...
Would you call them the regime?
Well,
would you say it like the...
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, sure. Well, what's the question?
Well, have there been regular democratic elections that?
No, you were talking about Israel.
Oh, okay. We'll go back
Iran's
to that.
position on Israel.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of whether
Iran's position on Israel is identical to its position on apartheid South Africa. When your government was supporting the supremacist regime in South Africa, the Iranians were supporting the ANC and Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
The same logic applies to Palestine.
Right. So it's not the existence of Israel, it's the nature of this Israeli state. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
That Iran's supposed to.
The state,
not its very existence.
The state could be called Palestine, it could be called Israel, it could be called Walt Disney, but as an apartheid state for Iran, this is not acceptable.
And isn't Iran something of an apartheid state, particularly if you're a woman?
Have you ever been to Iran?
No, but there's lots of countries I haven't been to that I know about, hear about, read about, speak to.
It's not an apartheid state. No, it's not an apartheid state.
Women are dragged off the street for not wearing the veil?
No, that's not true at all.
It is true.
Well, you can say it's true, but that doesn't make it a fact.
I think most people listening know that it is true.
I live in Iran. Many journalists come to Iran. Journalists that you can invite, Jewish journalist Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone, invite him on your show. And he's been to Iran just recently for a couple of weeks. He went to different cities on his own with his wife. There's also a journalist. Ask him if any women have been dragged off the streets anywhere that he's been to.
So you're denying that the Iranian government forces women to wear the veil, the hijab?
Well, veil is one thing.
I know it is. That's why I corrected myself. And those that don't want to...
You mean the headscarf?
The headscarf. And those that don't want to cover their hair, it's trouble for them, isn't it?
No, nothing happens to them. No, nothing happens to them. And some of my students on campus, in classrooms on campus, they don't wear headscarves. So I think your understanding.
But is your I'm just trying to get a sense, is your assertion that in Iran, in the last decade, and even more recently than that, not a single woman, particularly a protesting young woman, has been detained and in one case died in custody with wounds from beating because she had her hair shown?
No, you don't believe that happened? No. Mahsa Amini had no wounds. There is no footage There is footage of her, and in the footage, there is nothing that shows that she was beaten. She had a precondition. Yes, she was taken in, but she was not beaten for her dress. There is a law in Iran about a dress code, because whether you like it or not, they believe that the way in which the West promotes women is sexualization, commodification, objectification. So they'll have their own cultural boundaries, whether you agree with it or not.
Well, you've said to
whether
me
you agree, whether you agree with it or not,
yeah.
It doesn't. That's one thing. But women being dragged off the streets in Tehran, I've never seen that happen myself.
No, but
this
that
is like
doesn't mean
when
it
they keep
hasn't
saying
happened, does
gays in Iran are executed. I've never seen a gay person in Iran executed.
But
this is sort
that doesn't
of
mean
the
it's
myth
never happened. Does it?
No.
Just because you haven't seen a woman being dragged off the streets doesn't mean it hasn't happened.
No, I'm not saying it's never happened.
And you are wrong to say,
London,
if I can just
like
say, you are wrong to say that Mahsa Amini had no injuries. She had physical injuries, including a skull fracture and brain edema.
No, she didn't. No.
Well, an independent medical analysis and a UN fact-finding mission determined that she did.
There was no UN fact-finding mission in Iran. Where are you getting this information? What was the name of the UN fact-finding mission team, the name of the person who did this?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can find it for you. But you can say that about any statement that I make.
No, but the thing is that
I could do it back to you.
No, because you can't, because the point is that you have to give me names. If I say in the UK, people are being arrested for saying no to genocide, for having a billboard in their hands, no to genocide, they're being arrested for that. I have to show footage of it happening. And I have to show the law saying that this is how it's done. And when you tell me that if you tell me, has a woman ever been dragged away, I'll say yes. If you say that have people been beaten on the streets by the police, I'd say yes. In protests and riots, it happens. Well, if you tell me innocent people have died in Iran in prisons, I'd say probably yes.
Well, it's interesting.
But when you tell, and I would say the same about your country as well. And I would say the same about your country. But in your country and in the West, the caricature of Iran is very far from reality. And the reason is because of your country's hatred for Iran, which has been ongoing for 45 years. If Iran was so deeply despised, then it should have collapsed by now, so long ago.
But when you say, you ask
and then your government and your media is concerned about human rights in Iran, where you support Israel, not you, I mean your government, you support Israel, you help Israel in Gaza, you have the flights that go overhead.
We support the rights of Iranians as well. We support the rights of Iranians.
No, you don't. You actually are a country that tries to harm Iranians because you impose sanctions on ordinary Iranians. The maximum pressure sanctions. Do you think the maximum pressure sanctions hurt a government minister?
You know the reasons.
They're intended to make
for that.
ordinary people suffer.
You might not like it, but you know the reasons for that. I mean, can I just come back to you on one thing?
What are the reasons? Because since I don't like it, you should tell me. What are the reasons for the sanctions?
The reasons include the proxy terrorist activity that's been, I would argue, I'm sure you are going to disagree with me, but the proxy terrorist activity that Iran has been involved in for decades
What are these
now.
Hezbollah,
who are these Hamas, others arming
Hezbollah
Syria.
So Hezbollah you consider as a terrorist organization, right?
In part.
No. In part?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Is it a terrorist organization?
In part,
is it a terrorist
in the same way that the Republican movement in Northern Ireland was in part
in the same way that your government is a terrorist organization in part. Your government is a terrorist organization.
Is that your view?
That doesn't make sense. Either you're a terrorist or you're not.
No, organizations can be partly terroristic and partly political. You know that.
Just for your information, Hezbollah was created out of the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. It was a creation of the occupation. Just like the ANC was a terrorist organization and Nelson Mandela was a terrorist according to your government standards at the time, Hezbollah was created when the Israelis invaded Lebanon and took Beirut.
But you do know, surely, as an academic, that organizations can be terroristic and political and have wings which are both, and social as well. The Republican movement in Ireland certainly did.
So you're saying that the political wing of Hezbollah is not a terrorist organization?
It has connections to a terrorist organization, yeah, but it operates on different levels.
So it's not a terrorist organization.
In part, it is.
Look, I know you don't want to answer the question. From our perspective, Hezbollah is a national liberation organization that has recovered the South Lebanon and saved Lebanon from Israeli occupation and colonization. And Hezbollah's sin is that it supports the Palestinian people. Hezbollah has been resisting the Israeli regime, and it opposes the regime and the ethnic cleansing and the genocide. Your government, your media supports the genocide. You like Israel, you like what they do, and you consider them to be in your camp. Obviously, we have huge differences because Hezbollah has not carried out mass slaughter, and Israel has. And your government supports despots, countries that have zero elections, but they're not regimes.
But Hezbollah did carry out mass firing of missiles into Israel as well, just to report a fact back at you.
Israel invaded Lebanon multiple times. It took Beirut, and Israel bombs intentionally apartment blocks in Lebanon. Just today, it destroyed houses in southern Lebanon. Almost every day, it carries out assassinations.
I'm just making the point that the fire isn't just in one direction. You're proving a point. You're proving a point that the Israeli regime, which carries out murder and slaughter, is normal. And it is not a terrorist organization. But Hezbollah, when it responds with far less fire capability and without killing all these civilians as the Israelis do, they are the terrorists. Or partially terrorists. And
that standard of yours, that standard of yours, and it's not just you, it's your country, it's your government, it's the entire Western political establishment, is the problem. Well, it is the problem in our region.
And a problem
because you are choosing despots and you are choosing regimes that carry out ethnic cleansing as your allies because they serve your interests.
If I can speak, you say that is the problem. Iran has agency. It's making some of its own choices. Some of its people are currently protesting very vocally about the conditions they find themselves in, which I know some of which is related to sanctions. The women 2 years ago, many women were protesting about the conditions they find themselves in. However you characterize it, I will characterize it differently if I may, and I will equally characterize it.
I didn't characterize it. I didn't say anything. You asked me a specific question about an individual. Did women protest 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago?
They did.
Yes, many did.
Yeah.
Did students protest? Yes, many did. Did people protest 3-4 days ago on the street in Tehran? Yes, people did. But the rioters, they're a different group of people.
What should the Iranian government's response to, or what will, in your view, the Iranian government's response to the protests and what they're calling for and complaining about, what will it be? What's it likely to be in your view?
Roxana, on the first day of protests, they were peaceful. Was anyone arrested? Did the police attack anyone on day one? That's when the protests were bigger, actually, in Tehran, right? Now we have small riots here and there where they attack the police, they shoot at the police, they throw Molotov cocktails, and so the police responds. But on day one, there was no violence.
So for your
and the government, because the government recognized their protests as legitimate.
So for you, the Donald Trump
the question for me is the question for me is that in your country, if there are protests in Iran, you don't see this as a normal process in civil society. You see it as the regime, as you like to call it,
protest
the regime on the verge.
Protest is normal. I haven't said it's abnormal at all.
But in your country, if there are protests and we see police officers
we question all the time. We question all the time.
And they hammer, but that's a part of the process.
But
here in Iran is
hang on.
All right. Let's be real about what just happened in that interview, because there's a lot to unpack and I'm not going to sugarcoat any of it. First, the Mahsa Amini exchange, because that's where this interview got genuinely important. Marandi denied she had injuries. That is factually incorrect. A UN Special Rapporteur investigation, not a fact-finding mission. I want to be precise, concluded that Mahsa Amini died as a result of beatings while in morality police custody. Iran refused to allow independent investigators into the country. That's on record. So when Marandi said there was no evidence, that's not a defensible position. And we're calling that out directly on this channel because facts don't care about which side you're on. But here's where it gets complicated. And this is the part mainstream media conveniently skips. The journalist came in hot with strong claims and then couldn't name a single member of the UN investigation when pressed. In a debate about facts and accountability, that matters. If you're going to cite an authority, you better know what you're citing. That's not a technicality. That's the difference between journalism and talking points. Now let's talk about Hezbollah, because that exchange was genuinely revealing. The journalist called Hezbollah in part a terrorist organization, and Marandi immediately drew the historical parallel. Hezbollah was formed in 1982 directly in response to Israel's invasion and occupation of southern Lebanon. That is not a fringe claim. That is established, documented history recognized by international scholars across the political spectrum. The ANC comparison he made, Nelson Mandela's organization was literally designated a terrorist group by the United States until 2008. So the pattern of labeling resistance movements as terrorism while ignoring the conditions that created them, that's a real and documented pattern worth examining seriously. And the apartheid framing of Israel, that's not just Iranian propaganda either. Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem have all used the word apartheid. In formal reports, you can agree or disagree with that characterization, but it is not a fringe position. It is a position held by some of the most credible human rights organizations on the planet. Here's what Democrats need to be honest about. Sanctions are not a clean policy tool. Maximum pressure sanctions on Iran have genuinely devastated ordinary Iranian citizens, limiting access to medicine, food imports, and basic financial systems. That is documented by humanitarian organizations criticizing the Iranian government's human rights record, which deserves criticism, while simultaneously choking civilian access to basic resources through sanctions is a contradiction that our foreign policy establishment has never fully answered for. And the protests inside Iran, real, ongoing, and significant. But the relationship between those protests and Western interference is genuinely complicated. Historical CIA involvement in Iran, going back to the 1953 coup that overthrew democratically elected government, is not a conspiracy theory. It is one of the most documented covert operations in American history. That history matters when interpreting why Iranian officials are suspicious of Western support for protest movements. What this interview ultimately exposed is the gap between how Western media frames these conversations and what the actual documented record shows. That gap is not small, and closing it with facts, with context, with intellectual honesty is exactly what political commentary should be doing right now. Because at the end of the day, accountability has to go in every direction. Iranian human rights abuses are real. Western foreign policy failures are real. And the people caught in the middle, Iranian civilians, Palestinian civilians, Lebanese civilians, they deserve better than a media environment that turns their lives into a debate about talking points. That's what we do here. No easy answers, just honest ones. Hit that like button if this gave you something to think about. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what landed with you from that interview.